In this video, we'll be looking at the configure network communications for the G500 and G100 devices. We'll start with a network communication overview, followed by the types of connections, adding a network connection, modify or delete a network connection, connection application parameters, connection security via Modbus TCP SSH Tunnel, secure connection relay, VPN Server, and last but not least, Syslog Client. Let's jump in and get started. Network connections to the MCP are shown as sub-items under the Network Connections heading of the Connections pane. To improve the efficiency of communications, the MCP supports network-capable device and master connections using blocks that can process communications concurrently. Network blocks appear under the Network Connections heading of the Connection tab as protocol name blocks. Each network block is an instance of a designated protocol, client, or server application. Each network block can be configured for the number of device, client, or master station server connections and instance-specific protocol settings that are used for the network communications. Each network connection can be configured for either master station server communications using a selected protocol or IED's client communications using a selected protocol. Network devices. Network-capable devices can be connected to one or more data collection blocks and polled according to the instance-specific protocol settings. Master stations. The MCP can support communications to multiple, up to 8 master stations. The data presented to each master station may be identical or unique as defined by a server map. A single master block defines the master station connections. A master station represents a single instance of a server application. Each configured master station application is shown as a sub-item underneath the Network Master Stations item on the Connections tab. Network connections can be configured using the following protocol functions: IED block, DNP3 IED block, IEC 60870-5-104 IED block, Modbus TCP IED block, SNMP block, IEC 61850 client view only. IEC 61850 clients are available for viewing only and cannot be edited on the network page. To change the IEC 61850 client configuration, you must use the IEC 61850 loader tool and reload the configuration into the MCP. Refer to the IEC 61850 loader online help for more information. Master stations consist of DNP3 master, IEC 60870-5-104 master, Modbus TCP master, IEC 61850 server. There are 3 others: secure connection relay, VPN server, and Syslog client. You can manage the network connections on the MCP on the Connection tab on the configuration page. Each network connection can be configured for device, client, or master station server communications using a selected protocol. A map file must be available in the MCP before a protocol type can be added. The MCP includes several default maps. If you require a custom map, create it first before setting up the network connection. To add a network connection, on the Connection tab, click Add Connection, the plus button. On the New Connection window, select Network Connection and select the network connection type from the list. Select whether the application automatically starts, auto start, when the configuration is loaded, and when the MCP reboots. Modify the settings for the new connection. Double-click a cell to modify a value. The fields under Configuration Parameters, which are specific to the connection type. Click Save Configuration to save your changes. To modify a network connection, select the connection in the Connections pane. Double-click or select the Configuration Parameter field. Enter a new value in the parameter field. Click Save Configuration to save your changes. If you select a different map file for an existing IED connection in the drop-down list, or when you save it as a different file name when opened from within the Connections Map File Edit button, you'll be prompted with the following dialog. If you choose Retain, it will apply the new map file. The home directory and point mappings related to the connections are kept unchanged for the points inside the map file which were left with the same point ID. It is your responsibility to ensure the signals, i.e. point ID meanings, defined by the previous map file are identical to the signals defined in a new map file. If you choose break, it will apply the new map file. This will change the home directory, which results in invalidating all the existing point mappings that includes points selected within applications like the calculator, the ARMS configuration page, and the system point manager. Mappings affected by this are referred to as being non-existent. Choose cancel if you want to abandon and revert to what was selected before. To delete a network connection, select the connection block you wish to delete in the Connections pane. Click Delete Connections X button. Click Yes to confirm the deletion. The result, the item is removed from the Connections block list. Click Save Configuration to save your changes. Deleting a network connection will also delete configured devices. In addition, it will result in a home directory mismatch elsewhere in the configuration. The Application Parameters window allows you to view and modify the protocol settings for a specific client or server connection. Application parameters are available on the Connection tab on the Configuration page. The settings shown vary based on the connections type and protocol selected. To view default application parameters, under Application Parameters, select the default and then click Show. The result, the Application Parameters window opens. To create a custom application parameters profile, under Application Parameters, select the Use Custom and click Create. The Application Parameters window opens. To modify a parameter, double-click the associated value and enter a new value, or select from the drop-down list. More advanced parameters may be available on the Advanced subtab. When you're done, click Save. On the Save As window, enter a file name and click Save. Click Save Configuration to save your changes. To modify application parameters, under Application Parameters, select Use Custom and select the profile name from the drop-down list and then click Edit. If this profile is created and has not been committed yet, the Choose Version pop-up appears. Select the version, Committed, the most recently committed version. Uncommitted, the version created but not committed yet. The Application Parameters window opens. To modify a parameter, double-click the associated value and enter a new value or select from the drop-down list. More advanced parameters may be available on the Advanced subtab. When you're done, click Save. On the Save As window, enter a file name and click Save. Click Save Configuration to save your changes. The MCP supports Modbus TCP SSH protocol to establish a secure SSH connection with the URIEDs that support SSH v2 protocol through machine-to-machine access role. The MCP provides an option in the IED communication summary on runtime HMI for copying the MCP's public key into a URIED. The MCP also provides an option for rotating the MCP's public key into the URIED on an on-demand basis. Modbus TCP SSH Tunnel can be configured by selecting protocol as TCP SSH while adding the device. The following SSH parameters are used. SSH Server, the port number on which Modbus TCP SSH is to communicate with the IED. The default is 22. M2M username, name of the user to authenticate for TCP SSH communication. The default is M2M_user. SSH key rotation period in days after which new SSH keys are generated, transferred to IED, and then the session will be reestablished with the new SSH keys. Default is 1 day. On the SSH parameters field, select the Use Default and then click Show. The result, the default SSH parameters window opens. To create a new SSH parameters profile, on the SSH parameters field, select Create New. The SSH parameters window opens. To modify a parameter, double-click the associated value and enter a new value. When you're done, click Save. On the Save As window, enter a file name and click Save. To modify an SSH parameters profile, on the SSH parameters field, select the profile you want to modify from the drop-down list and then click Edit. The SSH parameters window opens. To modify a parameter, double-click the associated value and enter a new value. When you're done, click Save. On the Save As window, enter a file name and click Save. A secure connection relay is used to apply security features to an existing Ethernet connection. A secure SSL TLS connection is established to connect an external client device to the MCP to access a protected device service in the substation. A client device could be a PC with tactical software, serial IP, or S-Tunnel SCADA master that supports SSL, TLS, and mutual authentication using certificates. A protected device could be a master server application on the MCP or any other device connected to the MCP in the substation. It is strongly recommended that the user employ SSH TLS tunnels to protect the following services: DNP3 master, IEC 60870-5-104 master, Modbus TCP master. The user assumes all responsibility for associated security risks when enabling unsecured services onto an unprotected network. The following secure connection settings are used: secure connection relay name, text description to identify the connection, auto start, indicates if the application automatically starts when the configuration is changed and reloaded or when the MCP reboots. The default is enabled. Remote IP address, the IP address of the remote device that the secure connection is established with. LAN port, the IP port number to use when connecting to the remote device. Default is 20001. SSL TLS port default 50,000 plus X. Enter the port number that can be used to access the secure connection. The default is 50,000 plus X. X indicates the instance number. Max connection, the max number of concurrent connections permitted to access a secure connection relay at one time. The default is 1. File, select the secure application parameters profile defining this connection. After a profile is created, it can be saved and reused on other connections. You can create or modify a secure application parameters profile by clicking the Create or Edit button. On the Parameters tab, enable Insecure Authentication. When enabled, connection security features are not enforced. You should only enable this setting if alternate security features are available for the connection. The default is disabled. Session key renegotiation interval. The maximum amount of time in seconds it can pass before the connection session key is renegotiated. Frequently renegotiating the session key increases the security of the connection. The default is 900 seconds. Session key renegotiation count. The amount of data in bytes that can be transmitted between devices before the connection session key is renegotiated. The default is 1,000,000 bytes. Session key renegotiation timeout. The amount of time in milliseconds that the MCP waits for a response to a renegotiation request before the connection is considered timed out and is disconnected. The default is 2,000 milliseconds. On Issuers tab. Peer. The text string that must match the common name as provided on the certificate provided by the remote device. Issuer. The name of the issuer that generated the certificate provided by the remote device. Select from the list of installed issuer certificates. Enable peer identity validation. The default is enabled. If enabled, connections are only permitted to devices that provide a certificate that contains a common name included in the list above and that was provided by the associated issuer. If disabled, peer identity validation is not performed. The default is enabled. The On Ciphers tab. Cipher name, a list of ciphers supported by the MCP. When a connection is established with a remote device, a list of enabled ciphers is exchanged and the most secure cipher is selected to secure the connection. Select whether to enable the associated cipher. If the remote device does not support at least one of the enabled ciphers, the connection is not established. Permit null encryption. If checked, null encryption ciphers are permitted. If a null encryption cipher is used, the connection itself is unencrypted and is vulnerable to interception attacks. The default is disabled. Secure protocol, the default is TLS 1.0. Select the TLS version used to secure the connection. Available options are TLS 1.0, TLS 1.1, and TLS 1.2. The default is TLS 1.0. A VPN, or a virtual private network channel, is available between the MCP and the Open VPN client running on a remote computer. The VPN channel allows access to one or more protected services in the substation. The VPN channel is implemented using OpenVPN, which uses a custom protocol based on SSL, TLS, and certificate-based mutual authentication. Refer to the integration of MCP with OpenVPN Client, Configuration Guide SWM0103 for the detailed procedures used to implement a simple certification authority using open source tool -XCA. Install certificates on the MCP and Windows PC running OpenVPN Client. Configure VPN Server and VPN Client configuration on the MCP. Configure OpenVPN Client to communications to the MCP over virtual private network. The following settings are used when configuring a VPN server. Name, a unique name for the VPN server. The default is VPN Server. Auto Start indicates if the application automatically starts when the configuration is changed and reloaded or when the MCP reboots. The default is enabled. Network IP address is the IP address of the device. It must be unique from the other configured devices. The default is 10.200.0.0/24. Port, the port number on which the device communicates. Default is 1194. Concurrent connections, the number of allowed concurrent connections range is 1, 2, 3. Default is 1. Transport layer. The transport layer protocol, either Transmission Control Protocol TCP or User Datagram Protocol UDP. The default is UDP. Encryption algorithm. A mathematical formula used in encryption and decryption of the VPN communication. The default is AES-256-CBC. Authentication algorithm. Authentication is the process of verifying the encrypted data was sent by the sender and was not altered. The default is SHA-256. Custom option. Enter any options to be added to the VPN server configuration. Custom options that overlap the standard options take precedence. All options appear in this field separated by semicolons. To edit this field, click the Edit button. The result, the Configure Custom Option window appears. Click the Add button. The result, a line appears as the custom option. Type in the option text. Click Save. Custom options are advanced options and take precedence over the standard options. The standard options are secure by default. Implementing custom options can impact the security strength. The customer assumes risk of weakened security when implementing custom options. Consult the online OpenVPN literature for guidance. The MCP generates internally produced security events in syslog format as per specifications of the IEC 62351-14. In addition, it also generates internally produced application log events in syslog format. When the Syslog Client application is configured, it enables the MCP to transfer these security and application events to the remote syslog server over UDP. The Syslog Client can also relay the MCP locally buffered remote IED syslogs when the rsyslog service is enabled in the MCP. While configuring Syslog Client, these remote syslog servers communication parameters are available. When this checkbox is enabled, the Syslog Client application is configured for transfer of syslog events to remote syslog server. Network protocol. This parameter defines the supported protocol to transfer the syslog events to remote syslog server. Supported protocol is UDP. Primary server IP. The MCP allows to configure multiple remote syslog server connection details. This parameter defines the primary remote syslog server IP. Primary server port. This parameter defines the primary remote syslog server port number, and the default is 514. Secondary server enabled. When this checkbox is enabled, the secondary syslog server is also being used. Secondary server IP. This parameter defines the secondary remote syslog server IP. Secondary server port. This parameter defines the secondary remote syslog server port number, and the default is 514. Note that the remote syslog server shall be accessible via Predix Edge Manager IP. To configure the Edge Manager IP, refer to the Edge Manager connectivity configuration detailed under the Config Network Interfaces topic of the MCP settings. The Syslog Client application can be configured to transfer two categories of supported logs: remote logs and local logs. For each supported type of log, you can select whether to send to the Syslog server and set the minimum severity individually. When the Send to Syslog Server checkbox is enabled, all the logs whose severity is the same or higher than the minimum severity configured will be transferred to the configured remote Syslog server. The supported type of minimum severity are alarm, the highest severity, error, warning notice, info, the lowest severity. Remote IED acquired syslogs, default minimum severity, warning. User activity logs, minimum severity always has info. Diagnostic logs, default minimum severity, warning. Control logs, minimum severity always as info. Firewall logs, minimum severity always as info. System events, default minimum severity, warning. OpenVPN logs, default minimum severity, warning. ARM logs, minimum severity always as info. Analog report logs, default minimum severity, warning. Note that the analog report logs are not available after and including MCP v2.60. IEC 62351-14, security events, default minimum severity, warning. Lastly, I want to thank you for watching this training content video. And if you're looking for more great content, take a minute and check out the Resources Hub on the GE website. You can do that by typing resources.gegridsolutions.com into your browser, or just click the link in the description of this video and it'll take you right there. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.